Sarah Snell Cooke, your host at the Credit Union Connection. I'm here today with two Velera outstanding employees. I have on my right is Cheryl Middleton Jones, the Chief People Officer. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your time. And Michael Summers, who is the Chief Culture Officer at Velera. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I love having people on who can share experiences. And I think, culture and HR are so important within any business, but particularly with credit unions, since we are so member focused. And being member focused means we have to be employee focused so they can take care of our members. So with that, I'm going to let you all talk a little bit more about Velera. And Cheryl, why don't you kick it off about the Chief People Officer?
Sure. Well, first of all, nice to be here. And I've been the Chief People Officer since PSCU and Co-op Solutions merged January of 2024. And in my role, I'm responsible for many elements of the employee life cycle. So thinking about it from how we attract talent to how do we retain and grow talent to how do we offboard folks once their cycle here is done. And so, this topic is right up my alley. So I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about what we do with respect to Gen Z.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, go for it.
Sure. Again, thank you for having us here. It's always a pleasure to engage with folks out in the credit union industry and give us this opportunity to share what our experiences are. Hopefully we can all learn from each other. And I've been with Velera Legacy PSU now for over 24 years. I've been the Chief Culture Officer since April of last year. And it's exciting that our President and CEO, Chuck Fagan, put a strong focus on culture. I don't think many organizations do it in such a meaningful way. So very honored to be in this role that has a pretty big scope around the cultural levers that, pair really, really well with Cheryl's people organization and most of the HR centers of excellence. But under my organization, we've got all the learning and development functions, whether it's employee learning or client learning, knowledge management, leadership development, employee engagement, all those things that when paired really strongly with the people org, we deliver some very impactful programs, as Cheryl indicated, across the whole employee experience, across the whole talent lifecycle at Velera. So really honored to be a partner of Cheryl and be here with her in the space. So thank you.
Absolutely. I think I was really curious about the two different positions. And so I'm glad you kind of showcased that, because I've never heard of having two separate people for people, I guess.
I think if I could, I would just say, Michael hit it right out of the park. I think that was really Chuck Fagan's focus as we came together as one organization. And Michael and I joke that, he's the peanut butter to my jelly and vice versa in terms of how we work together to make sure that, not just are we covering our talent, but how are we creating the culture of the organization that reflects what we want it to in terms of how we service and support credit unions. So it's actually a really nice partnership.
Yeah, sounds like it. Absolutely. And then as part of that, you all were named America's Greatest Workplaces for Gen Z in 2025, which you alluded to, Cheryl, by Newsweek and Plant A Insights Group was, I guess, who they partnered with. So how did that come about?
Honestly, I don't know how the actual nomination came about. That's actually a really good question. But I can tell you, a little bit more about how we think about talent and how we think about, in particular, Gen Z. Michael and I really, for Velera, partnered together to kind of create a vision for the organization around people. And it's really all about creating a workplace culture where excellence and belonging are an area of focus in order to make sure that the company is delivering on its strategic objectives. And just from a how we acquire talent standpoint, our purpose is to be the employer of choice and the best place to work in our industry and community. So that just really aligns with multi-generational talent acquisition. And Gen Z is very special because, as you know, that's kind of the up and coming, generation that we want to make sure that we attract and retain. And I can talk a little bit about how we do that and how we operationalize it, and have had some success here at Velera. But just in terms of our philosophy, we embrace talent wherever it comes from, and we want to just make sure that we as an organization are a place that everyone wants to work and can do their best work every day.
Michael, would you like to add on to that?
Sure. I think that even though Velera hasn't celebrated its second birthday yet, we have a lot of factors, a lot of things in place that factor into the reason Gen Zers are attracted to our organization. And it does really start with that hiring strategy. And Cheryl and team have been super intentional about including, Gen Zers, and like how do we shape our programs? How do we shape their language around them? How do we position Velera well for all audiences? And I think we all know on this call that the credit union space needs to figure out how do you bring Gen Z, if you're seeking members of your credit union, how do you bring them in to be members of the credit union, let alone Velera is not seeking them to be employees of Velera. So that's something that we've been really intentionally working on. I think Chuck Fagan, our president and CEO, said it really well when he says something to the effect that we believe our employees are our greatest asset. That really is our culture North Star, but really like not just saying it, but we believe it. And our goal is for them to feel like that is a true statement. That is their lived experience. And our industry is really driven by people helping people philosophy. And I think that Gen Zers are seeking organizations where there is a purpose, right? There's a commitment and a purpose, and it's bigger than just a profit goal or making making money for shareholders. And I think the credit union space resonates with the Gen Z community in that way. And we do our best to shape programs that would attract people to the organization.
Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like it was obviously a strategic goal, which I know many credit unions are, as you alluded to, Michael, are looking to do as well. And so, Cheryl, you mentioned this briefly, but how did you all end up being able to operationalize it? Because obviously it's great to have a strategic goal, but making it happen is an entirely different thing.
Yes. Now, one way that we've been able to achieve this is through our intern program. We started our first Velera summer intern program back in May, around mid to late May, and we have almost 30 interns that are here with us now for the summer in a variety of areas, ranging from product to technology to organizational learning in Michael's shop and other parts of the organization. And that express goal is to retain some of that talent for our future workforce. And so that is probably one of our biggest efforts that we've made so far in order to be attractive to Gen Z. And we have had interns before as each legacy company, and we've had feedback about, how well that has worked. But this time with the Velera lens, the Velera focus, our focus is really on retaining that talent. And we've also recruited Gen Z actively in our population. And I think it was at our last sales conference, there was a panel where we were talking about how do we leverage what we've learned from recruiting Gen Z talent to our marketplace? How do we help credit unions become attractive to Gen Z? And some of our panelists and speakers who are that population would blow you away in terms of how they think about work and what is attractive. And a lot of what they say really resonates with the mission of credit unions. They value purpose driven work.
Mm-hmm.
They appreciate people helping people. And that's why they find Velera attractive. That's why they would find credit unions attractive as well. It appeals to what Gen Z is looking for in terms of being able to make a difference and have an impact on the world.
Yeah, and how is Gen Z changing culture? Because they do seem very different from Gen X and the boomers that are exiting. Michael?
I think that the way Gen Z influences our culture is they almost help us walk the talk, right? We can say we are all about people helping people. We can say we are an organization that tries to create an inclusive employee environment, and one of our core values is belonging. So holding us to that commitment of that core value, which a lot comes with a lot is underneath that core value of belonging. How do we create that employee experience that fosters that environment and that is noticeable? So in many ways, by ensuring that we keep that as one of our guiding principles and have them help us through input or feedback around the programs, they help us stay on track. There was a Harvard Business Review article back in 23 that had a whole list of what can managers do to highly engage Gen Zers, to either attract them or retain them within your workforce. And a lot of things that were listed that managers in the organizations can do, we've checked a lot of those boxes, but we not only have to build the programs that enable those, but to also sustain them. And some of them were as simple as, but it's hard for a lot of organizations to get there. Just being transparent and open with decision making within the organization, or why, they're explaining the reasons why things are built the way they're built, whether they're programs or projects within the company, goes a lot to alleviate any kind of fear they might have with just not being fully informed. Empowering folks, making sure that they've got autonomous uh, working environments, working structures, and really focusing on well-being and mental health. I mean, we focus on a lot of that too. So we've checked a lot of the boxes that HBR said were important. So that's good. But
Yeah.
how did we do that? We've built a lot of programs, like we have a whole list of business resource groups that we are now relaunching with the Velera brand. And one of them is around young professionals. So young professionals, that's pretty much the Gen Z community, would find that specific BRG very interesting. And I think that one really leans into our commitment to getting fresh perspectives from that generation that's entering the workforce, so we don't just stagnate on old ideas. So there's a lot of things it's all about intentionality as we're
Hmm.
finding.
And I'm sure that impacts the benefits offered and things like that too. How has Gen Z shaped that within Valera? Have they made changes? Have you
I
made?
don't I don't know if I could attribute some of the changes that we've made specific to Gen Z. We look at certainly employee attitudes and requests because sometimes employees say, "Hey, have you thought about?" So we get those requests, but we also do a lot of benchmarking externally, and it's through those two medium that helps to shape what we offer by way of benefits. And we do offer things that I think resonate with perhaps this generation, whether we're talking about tuition reimbursement, so supporting their ongoing professional growth and development, because we know that's important, right? As well as access to wages earlier. So we run a program where if you enroll, you can actually have access to your wages real time, as opposed to perhaps waiting the full biweekly period. So that's one of the newer offerings that we have. And I would just say, as Michael mentioned, a lot of support around well-being. So whether that's physical, whether that's mental, whether that is financial, we do have a heavy emphasis and offer benefits and programs around wellness. And I hope that that's attractive to all the employees that are part of our organization.
Very true. Yeah, for all credit unions talk about financial wellness, sometimes it's their own employees, and
Mhm.
and um, that's obviously a great place to start is when somebody is still Gen Z, still somebody is still 20 is a good place to start, if not sooner, obviously. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. So what are the first steps for a credit union who wants to hire Gen Z, but maybe is struggling a little bit? What are some of the first steps you all would suggest in beginning to attract them?
I,
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I would say credit unions could first really examine their culture. So we've learned a lot through this journey just in the past 18 months since we did stand up a group just fully focused on culture building, culture monitoring, and sustaining. It's a place where you could check of or check within to see, do we have things that resonate with the Gen Z community built into all the different moments that matter, as we call it, across the employee experience or the talent journey, however you want to express it. But just also making sure that your culture is aligned with strategy. I think Cheryl mentioned that right out the gate here. We had to make sure that the culture we were building was aligned with the strategy that we are stepping into for the next 5, 10 years, and that's significant, because we all know that culture is an enabler of strategy, so making sure we get it right is very important. So I would say the first step is looking at culture, and then probably the second step is looking at all you're taking an inventory of all the programs that we've built or that a credit union has built in the talent space, and even across the rest of the company, if you consider moments that matter, like what impacts the employee when they go to IT to get hardware or software, or they go to finance to get some services from them or another business unit. But taking inventory and making sure that those different programs are also have elements and language that would attract and help retain Gen Z employees.
Hmm. Anything to add, Cheryl?
I would second what Michael said, and I would just add, I think self-reflection, as an organization is key, and really doing the work around where could you benefit from additional talent, not talent like extra hands to do work, but really looking at what you do, how you do it, and where there are opportunities perhaps to do it differently and to augment that with some early career talent. I know in the past, I've been parts of organizations where, you tend to hire really experienced people because we value their knowledge and we want people that know the industry. And so to get that knowledge of the industry and to have that experience, typically you're hiring somebody that's mid-career. And
Hmm.
that's great. I would say that works. And sometimes you also want to grow your talent too. Finding that talent that you can grow and develop and mold and shape can work just as effectively and give you better long-term benefits because hopefully they'll stay with you for the longer term. So I think, the self-reflection of where you can do that, evaluating the benefits and being willing to perhaps do things differently than the way you've done them before creates an opportunity to be able to add some really fantastic early career talent to your organization.
Yes, certainly needed to refresh, because great ideas come from anywhere, and especially Gen Z. I have two Gen Z kids, and I feel like they speak a different language.
They do. They're digital natives. They don't, I mean, I can tell my daughters don't know what forms are because they come home from school and they're just like, you sign this. And I'm like, well, what is it? I don't know, but you have to sign it. They don't even read anything that's paper, And so it's like speaking another language, like you said. And so I think there's an opportunity. Heck, they teach me all the time what I can do with my iPhone that I've never explored. So they elevate my knowledge. And I think you magnify that across the workforce, and you've got, this generation that can really help elevate what we do.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I think Cheryl brought up a really great point when she used the words grow or learn. It was one of those or both of those words, Cheryl, that you just mentioned. But if the Gen Z population recognizes Velera or your credit union with the ability to learn and grow, which we all know are drivers of engagement, and has built within their business practices the ability to be on cross-functional teams. Now, a lot of this stuff you don't know until you get into the organization, but perhaps this is how you retain folks. But making
Hmm.
sure they have the opportunities to learn and grow professionally within their career, and being able to take risks and work autonomously, work on cross-functional projects that helps people understand what opportunities there are within the organization and making those real opportunities. I think that a lot of organizations fall into the trap where they pigeonhole people into different roles and they're not willing to look across the org for perhaps developmental opportunities for them, but it really does benefit the individual and the business. So I think growth and development are super important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur. And so what does being America's greatest workplace, one of America's greatest workplaces for Gen Z mean for you and for Velera? Cheryl, start with you first.
Sure. I mean, I think it looks like, when we advertise for a summer intern, we get like 500 applications, right?
Mhm.
I mean, that tells me something. One, it tells me that certainly Gen Z is looking for work, but it also tells me that what we offer is attractive to them. And I think that is both the opportunity and the challenge, continuing to level up and make sure that we deliver on that promise. And I think the benefits to us are enormous. The augmentation of some really terrific talent and new fresh ideas, as you mentioned, Sarah, that's priceless. And I think it's to our detriment and to any credit union's detriment to overlook this tremendous potential that we have with this population.
Mhm. Michael, you want to add?
Oh, I fully agree with what Cheryl just said. I think I would just take it one step further to say, like, once you've attracted them and get them within your organization, then make sure, to my earlier point, that you're doing everything that you can to help them know there are opportunities within your organization and help make those connections for them. Because Cheryl's right. I mean, we need fresh perspectives, we need fresh minds. We know that our interns are coming in with some crazy skills to the point where Cheryl and I met some of them just a few weeks ago, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, we got to sharpen our saw because these folks are talented." And but testament to maybe even just the program, but the organization is that we have at least one repeat intern that was going for, she was finishing up her bachelor's program during her first internship, and now she's on a master's program and she's doing another internship with us. And we got to find a way to secure that talent. So
Mhm.
it's great that to me, I would agree. I think that means it indicates that we are headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that's what it means to win an award like this to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, our credit union audience is out there listening to y'all, because we all need younger members to join credit unions. One, because they're the best choice out there, but also as being an employer of choice too. I can't remember who said that, but yeah, to be an employer of choice is what I feel like all credit unions should shoot for. And when you get 300 applications and you're only taking 30, you know, it gives you the best choices possible.
And if
So,
I could,
oh,
Sarah, if I could, I would just also add, I mean, the value proposition for credit unions in this space of attracting talent is phenomenal. I mean, you have the platform. I think it's also a matter of being where they are. And so, certainly we post positions in that, but we're also out on campus. So,
mm,
maybe you start small, after you figure out where there are opportunities internally. Maybe you go to a local university and just, interview and see
mm,
what's out there and start with one person, but that's kind of how we've started our programs before we got to the Velera space of being able to scale a little bigger than we could as PSCU or co-op, but we started small. And from that start, we've been able to expand and grow. But the credit unions of that we support and that we serve are just wonderful employers. And I think you want students to know that. You want this generation to know that. And you have a tremendous space to be able to do that.
yeah, you almost preempted my next question, but
Sorry.
as we're coming to the end, I want to uh, get your final thoughts for our credit union audience. And since Cheryl just kind of gave one that could have very well been at the end of the show. But yeah, I'll start with Michael first and to give Cheryl time to think of another one.
Okay.
And what are you looking for, Sarah?
Just your final thoughts. What would you like to leave based on our, discussion today? What would you like to leave our Credian audience with?
Well, I do believe that it does start with the culture of your organization, because you can't artificially create something, whether it's a Gen Z attraction strategy or any other program in the talent space, without it aligning with what you believe in for your culture. So be intentional about culture. That's one thing that we've learned over the past year and a half, is you have to be super intentional. Having a culture grow itself within your organization isn't a strategy. I think you need to take control of it and try to build it, try to measure it, try to monitor it, and nurture it as much as possible. So I think it does begin with culture.
And following up too, making sure you continue to nurture it and measure it. Okay, Cheryl, wrap it up here. Final thought.
Okay, well, I would just double down on what I said earlier. You got to start somewhere. Start small and set a goal. Whatever that goal is, start there and then work your way up. I think this didn't start with a grand plan to have 30 plus interns. It started small. And we saw the value and continue to invest. And it's not just a people objective. This is something that is supported by the businesses that are part of Velera. Each one of our functional areas they come to us saying, hey, I need an intern. And isn't that great? Where you build something where the demand keeps it going. It's not something that we're actively pushing. We are, being solicited every September, October to say, hey, are we going to do interns again in the summer? Because I want one. And that, I think, is a good hallmark for success too. So I would just double down on starting small, set a small goal that is achievable and work from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.